Hello, welcome. I'm waving in the studio. I am waving. No one's here, but I definitely feel the love. Welcome back to the Grow Podcast, and I hope everyone is ready for a great week of growing. Auburn was off this week, as I've been talking about. Let's talk Auburn. So I'm going to do a little switch up. We're not going to be talking about Auburn, but one of the things that I want to talk about, and it's just kind of overflowing from last week. Of course, I had Brian Smith on the show with the surprise guest, Pat Carter, played at Florida State. But it was one of the things that I wanted to kind of take a deeper dive into having Pat back on the show, because I mentioned a little bit about his book last week. But this week, I really want to really talk about Pat, talk about his life. And as you already know, on the Grow Podcast, we talk about faith, life, and you. So we're going to get back into talking about some things of faith, personal life, and we're going to be doing this with the special guest who's on the show today, Pat Carter. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Pat to the show. Thank you.
Thank you for having
me. You feel the love, brother? Do you feel the love?
Yeah, I feel it.
Well, Pat, for people who don't know you, and I know people are saying, who is Pat Carter in the sense of our relationship? Of course, I heard about you before I ever met you, and I know you can't wait to talk about that, but just giving a little bit of the backstory as far as what I know about Pat. I heard about Pat Carter while at Auburn. He comes in, has an excellent game. We end up being teammates and have just had a flourishing friendship after many years after that. But Pat, before we get all into the details of that, I want you to share your story with the listeners who are listening to the Grow Podcast today. Pat, where are you from? All that kind of stuff. Where did you grow up? And so many times people ask me about the NFL dream. When did all that happen for you?
As I'm originally from Sarasota, Florida.
Okay.
And a section of Sarasota, Florida is called Newtown, and that's kind of where most of the Black people, we were sectioned off at. But it was a great place to grow up. I went to Riverview High School. Then after graduating from Riverview High School, I attended Florida State University and played, obviously went on and played professional, and that's where I met my lifelong friend now, brother. And thank God for you.
Yeah. So, Pat, growing up in Newtown, when did it hit you in the sense of saying, I want to play? Now, a lot of people just aspire to play college ball. When did you say, no, I want to be a professional football player? Example, for me, I knew when I saw the Pittsburgh Steelers playing against the Dallas Cowboys, the 4 defensive linemen came out, and that changed my life. I want to do that. Did you have a moment like that?
Yeah, well, I think for me was watching O.J. Simpson, the football player,
man.
Running that rock, man. I became a huge football fan, and I kind of transitioned from Buffalo to the Dolphins.
Okay.
I was a big Miami Dolphins fan.
I got you.
But most of the kids in our community and neighborhood, we played street football. We all pushed and challenged each other. That was all of our dreams. But as life goes on, people start taking different turns. Right?
I say when life gets to life, and
life be life. Yeah.
So Pat, we go from that. You go to the NFL, and one of the things that we're really going to be talking about is about your book. And I have the copy of it right here, All-American Poet. And it's pretty much talking about your life during the time that you were at Florida State.
Correct.
And a lot of people will, and I love you have the different poems that tell about your life. But one of the things that, one of the poems when everyone, of course, knows Deion Sanders, but you wrote something very unique in one of your poems saying how you didn't play with Deion.
Right.
But Deion played with you.
Right. That's correct. Well, people oftentimes when they find out that, I played during that same time.
Yes.
So they were like, oh, you played with Deion, huh? I'm like, you played with me. I was there
first. So Pat, now, as I told you, I heard about you before I ever met you. Right. And of course you came to, it's sad to say, but it's just the truth. I mean, you came to Auburn and you just turned it out. You did phenomenal game. But also, you have a unique story about someone, one of Auburn's greatest, Bo Jackson. Share that story.
That is a great story. I played tight end, and obviously Bo Jackson was a running back. But my grandmother, she knew I played football, but she didn't know much about football. She called me and says, "You playing Bo Jackson this week?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "He gonna hurt you. Please don't play in the game." I'm like, no, Grandma, we won't be on the field at the same time.
That is funny. That's funny. Say, Grandmama don't want you out there. Not with that Bo Jackson, huh?
And but they could. She shortened his name and called him Bojack. She didn't even call him Bo Jackson. She called him Bojack.
So she did not want her baby out there with Bojack on the field.
That's correct. That's correct.
Man, that is funny. So, Pat, you get drafted. Where did you go to in the draft? What team did you go to?
I initially was drafted by the Detroit Lions in the second round back then. I was the 32nd pick.
Okay.
And I was only there a year, and then I got traded to Los Angeles.
Now, how was that experience for you, as far as the draft and all that? I mean, did you have the big draft party? Were you sitting there with all your family and friends around? How was?
No, I'm a little more modest than that, and then plus, I was always concerned. I didn't know where I would go.
Okay.
Because initially, I was slated to go between 18 and 30.
Okay.
And obviously, I fell out of the first round and into the second, and you're just happy to be picked by
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Man, that is something. So, how was it when you first went to Detroit? I mean, when you arrived there, was this your first time being in Detroit? How was this your first? I mean, I know, of course, playing at Florida State. That's one of the big things about playing college ball. You get to travel a little bit.
Right.
But how was it as far as you going to Detroit, coming from Florida?
Well, for me, it was a huge jump because I wouldn't say I was Ellie Mae, but
now when you're saying Ellie Mae, you're dating yourself. People are probably listening, saying, "Who is Ellie Mae?"
Who is Ellie Mae? Well, I was a little behind in the times. We didn't wear gaiters and stuff like that growing up. So I had to catch up, stylish wise, but. It was a great city. I had never been to a place where I saw so many Black people doing well, and that is what had impressed me as well.
Yeah, I say a progressive city. I get that so much when I would come from California, friends would come from California or from up north, and they would come to Atlanta. It would be the same thing. Of just seeing people of color doing, as they would say, doing well, and growing up in Atlanta when it's like, well, this is just my norm. I don't know anything different. Of course, when I would go to other places, then you start seeing the difference. Now, Pat, here we go. We're going to let's go a little deeper. A lot of times people just have this little thing of you're in the NFL. All is well. You don't have any issues, any problems. How was that for you?
Hey, the song came a little late, but Biggie them had us on More Money, More Problems. That's really kind of what I found out. I found out some people I thought, had my back didn't have my back. You learn a lot about the people around you more than anything. Yeah.
So with that, Pat, you had a very unique experience. I mean, you come to the Rams. You're there. I mean, at that time, we would see each other. No gripes. Hey, what's up? But we did not run together. It was just one of the things. One of the highlights, I guess, for me, of course, is me rededicating my life. Sean Gilbert, one of first round defensive lineman comes in. God uses me to lead him to the Lord, things of that nature. A couple of years later, I'm leaving. I'm gone. But the team moved to St. Louis. You go with them to St. Louis. Something happens in St. Louis. Share that story.
Well, I was in the throes of. I'm 27 years clean. I've had a drink.
Wow!
And I'm so thankful to the Lord. No 12 steps. He just took the desire away.
Wow. Man.
Yeah, and back then I was in the throes of my alcoholism, and
Now, did
and
people know about this? Was this something that was just kind of undercurrent? Because when I saw you, I
no,
mean,
I was a functioning. I was a functioning alcoholic.
wow.
Is what I would
Yeah.
consider it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I was gonna make sure I went to work and did what
Yeah.
I needed to be done.
Hmm.
But now, once it was my time, I was using it for the wrong reason
Right.
that time.
Right. So something happens unique when you're there. I mean,
Hmm.
um, tell that story that you're in St. Louis. It's and obviously I guess before a game, something happens.
Well, I can't remember specifics, but I can remember I was under pressure. I was dealing. I had some, like I said, I was in the throes of the alcoholism. I had some pressures from my ex-wife at now, but
Hmm.
she was my wife then, and just felt like the whole world was on top of me.
Yeah.
But somehow or another, the Lord led me to Sean,
Yeah.
and Sean and Fred Stokes baptized me in the shower before a game.
I mean, but isn't that just crazy? I mean, to
Yeah.
think about that when people thinking this is going on in the NFL, and I'm so glad you shared that because a lot of times people just think, oh, I mean, it's before a game. You're locked in, you're focused, but people don't realize that uh, God can still be working right in the middle of a full
Yeah.
stadium and
Yeah.
people being there. You know,
Yeah.
and I think that is so good, and I find that very unique that happened with you because
Hmm.
before I would go out as a defense line, I always just used to say, "Come, let us go to the other side." And Sean told me, he said, "Man, I would cringe when you would hear when I would hear you say that." He said because I felt like it was like the Lord calling me, and it was
Hmm.
like this is happening before a game, and I have no clue. And here it is that you are right at this thing of a game getting ready to start. This is not after a
Yes.
game. This
Yeah.
is before the game.
But funny you say after the game because if I remember right, we were trying to leave, and one of those two said, we finna do this right now. We can't wait on that." And we got it done.
Wow. Well, listen, I have a surprise for you. I
Mm.
have a surprise. I have one of those guys right now coming onto the show to kind of talk about that experience. So let's welcome Brother Fred Stokes to the Grow Podcast.
Fred Stokes, how you doing, brother?
What's up, brother?
How you doing, my man?
I'm doing outstanding, Pete Carter. I'm doing outstanding, man.
Good.
Hey, I've been surprising guys for the past 2 weeks, just having surprise guests and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
You have.
Fred, so good to see you, man. Welcome to the Grow Podcast. And Fred is my guy. We talk all the time. Fred, I was just Pat was just sharing his story about what took place with him, just really giving his life to the Lord before a game. And he was just sharing, of course, between you and Sean. Kind of recap that. I know he was just saying it before a game what he was dealing with. Kind of recap what was the experience that you had with the encounter with Pat at that time.
Well, first, Dave, man, thank you for having me on the set, man. I appreciate it being on here. And even at this moment with Pat, to answer your question, man, I get to the Rams after having been there before. So I'm basically going back home. There's familiarity with the team. That kind of minimized my stress level a little bit from having to prove myself to the team. But, seeing all these new guys, including yourself, some guys that were still there, Jackie Slater and some other guys that were still there. So I was comfortable there. And then, watching Pat and DJ, and there was another tight end that was there. And, I just want to say, let me just throw this out there, too, for tight ends, because Pat was doing his thing. But, my middle son, Landon, played at Vanderbilt for 4 years. So he played outside linebacker. But what I told Landon, I said, son, as a defensive end, outside linebacker, I don't care if the guy is 400 pounds. If he lines up in the tight end position, he ain't getting nothing. He ain't getting nothing. So I didn't care nothing about tight ends. You know what I'm saying? So
Okay.
that was Pat Carter. That was DJ. That was
Hey, now that don't even concern me. Hey,
calm down, fellas. Calm down. Not now. Hey,
but here's the
30
thing.
years ago. 30 years.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I did realize quickly that Pat wasn't really DJ was more the blocker. I mean, DJ he was taller and bigger. He was more like the blocker, but Pat was more that receiver, man, that could get it done. So I watched him, and Pat, I don't know if you remember, I didn't, at that time, man, God had grabbed hold of my life. And so I was there on a business trip. I had my wife and our 2 kids, Landon and Lance, because when we got there, Regina was pregnant with our second son. So I was more mature, if you will, and also in my faith. So I wasn't really concerned about guys partying and doing that stuff. Right. So I don't really remember, Pat doing a whole bunch of stuff, just being a great guy. Right. I mean, Pat, like I say, you was a functioning alcoholic, so to speak. So that was news to me, right? Because you're a great guy, great personality, always laughing, talking. I just wasn't gonna let you get down on the field, you know what I'm saying? But you know what I'm saying, that's just mine.
So Fred, when did you hear about the situation in the sense of Pat's in the locker room and he's going through a situation before a game?
Dave, our organization, Lent Brother, Life I Never Tell. What I've learned now that I didn't know then, that every man needs another man he can get down to the lint with, that lint in your pocket, right? The lint in the pocket of your life. And so what I didn't know then that I know now is I thought when guys were looking bad, they were doing bad. When guys what I mean is you could tell the guy, man, he's looking down or, he's going through some stuff. So he's having some problems either with his wife or whatever. I didn't understand at the time that guys who were smiling and balling and making the money and living the life that internally they were jacked up. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So I was kind of measuring my life to that. So Pat would have been the one, if you'd have asked me, I'd have been like, okay, who's on your team you think having some problems? Pat Carter probably wouldn't have been on my list because he's a great guy, great personality.
And a functioning alcoholic at that time.
But see, but the thing about it is he was like everybody else. And you're right, Dave. But he was like all the other guys, I thought, just party, hang out a little bit. Mm-hmm. So you'd have been like, what about Pat? Is he an alcoholic? I'd have said, nah, I mean, he probably drank a lot. So the surprise, and I'm leading up to that point. So I was just as surprised, probably if anybody else would have heard it. We're in St. Louis. St. Louis Rams at this time. We had played some games and I know, but at this moment, I was leading what I used to call the shower of power. On Sunday, we get in and I have this little word and we do a little something in the shower. We pray and we leave. Well, we did that. We're done. Church is over. We get ready to go play ball.
Right. So
I'm sitting in my locker. They say, hey guys, we got to go. So I grab my helmet. And as I'm walking out the locker room, I don't know who it was. It could have been Sean Gilbert, but somebody says, hey man, Pat Carter's in the shower. He's crying. And man, he's like, man, he's going through some stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm like, he can't choose another time to go through some stuff. Like we get ready to go through this tunnel.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So so I was like, what? They said, yeah, man, Pat Carter's in the shower, man. He's like, man, he wants somebody to pray with him. I was like, are you serious?
Right.
They was like, yeah. So at that moment, I realized that they were serious, that Pat was serious.
Right.
So I turned around going there, man, and Pat was just, he was emotional, man. He was like, dude, I'm tired. And if you gave me $1 billion, I could not tell you who we played. Because the rest of it was a blur.
Wow.
All I remember is running out the tunnel saying, God, you're amazing. God, you're amazing. Lord, thank you. Awesome. And Dave, I'm telling you, if you put $1 billion in my hand, I could guess, but I don't even remember who we played or the score.
I wouldn't either. But Fred, I always say that moment there put me on the path of where I am today.
Wow. That is awesome. That is
really,
awesome.
And I mean that.
Oh man, well, Fred, listen, thank you so much. That's what I wanted. I wanted to surprise you, Pat, with Fred coming on, just kind of sharing that story. Fred, I'm gonna have you come back and be on the Grow podcast so you can talk about some things that you have going on and go a little bit deeper into that Lent Brother saga.
Well, I mean, I'm still right now. You got me on with the tight end, so I'm just want to. Can I just get this?
Fred, well, Fred, your memory isn't really good. Hey, I was cooking y'all boys over there. Boy, I cooked over there. I'm just telling you, your memory is real bad.
Fellas, see, no.
Dave, let me just say this right here.
That one more in, didn't he?
Okay. There's cooking, and then there's barbecuing. Pat had a few wings, some fries, but he ain't had nothing heavy.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I love you guys, man.
Appreciate you, Fred.
Love
Thank
you
you,
guys.
man.
Hey,
Blessings.
Fred, good to see you, brother.
All right, man. We'll see you.
All righty.
All right,
Be blessed.
take care. So, Pat, that was the
Mhm.
turning point, man.
Yeah, that put me on the path.
That put you
I'm
on
today.
the path,
Yeah,
right?
no doubt about
And
it.
so now you're saying it's been over 20-some years.
27.
27.
Yeah.
So now you're 27 years
hmm
clean.
hmm
You're living for the Lord,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, this pops in. How does this come up? That now your book, which is out, is on Amazon. I have it. I've already gone through it. I love it. Even my mother-in-law has started reading the book. That's why I had to go back upstairs and find it. But All American Poet by Pat Carter. I mean, well, let me say the full name, Wendell Patrick Carter. How did you end up, Pat, getting to the point of you writing the book, and just kind of talk about that book?
It's been an amazing. This has been an amazing ride.
Mm.
For years, I would write things on
Yeah.
on Facebook,
Yeah.
and I even had a friend of mine, a very good friend,
Mhm.
that said that boy is a writer.
Yes. Mhm.
And you as time goes on, you just start. I continued to write things
Yeah.
and saw the popular response in the post.
Yes.
So then I went out and they had a poetry reciting contest downtown. So I went in and recited one of my poems there, and it blew them away.
Wow.
So I said to myself, I got something here. And it inspired me even more to just write and
Wow.
write and write.
Wow.
And a lot of these things I don't remember. It's I always like to say God is drop them right in there, and I
Man.
just is what I call it.
That is me. Did you ever have any clue when you're growing up that, oh, I'm going to be a writer? This just totally something.
This is one of those where you follow God's lead.
Wow.
You
That's
know,
good.
and God has moved me in this direction
Mm.
to the point where this is the first book, but I have written enough poems where I have 3 books already. We just haven't put them together the three more books.
And
ready.
Pat, to kind of elaborate on that, when we talk about the All American Poet, this book,
Mhm.
and it's a book of poems, but what does these poems talk about?
Well, initially in this book, it's just strictly my time in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
The some of the people I met, some of the events that I went through, and it's just great reliving some of them. But there's one that kind of always hurts me when I bring that one up. But it was an incident that did happen.
So this is your life at Florida State told
Yes.
through the avenue of poetry.
Yes.
And you're saying this is the first, and you're
Yes.
going to have another book
Yes.
that follows up. And I know, and I'm not gonna have to spoiler, but I've read one of those poems, and it just talked about some party days that you used to have.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go all into it, but it even talked about. I'm just going to mention that. But what I do understand, you partied at Magic Johnson's house.
Yes,
Okay,
I
I'm
did.
just gonna.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
But that's gonna be
that's in the next book, though.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, that's in the next book.
Wow. So the journey, far as you just writing, I mean, are you still writing now? Do you think it's going to be one of these things that you're just going to, let me say this, 5 years from now, will Pat Carter probably have written, what, 5 books, 3, and this is just it? Or what's your feel or take on that?
I don't know what God has for me, but I do know football. Football was my introduction into this world. And but that's all it is.
Yeah.
Because once my first 2 will be football related and about me. The third one will be about my community in which I grew up, and then the fourth one will be inspirational poems, which is pretty much where I think I'll spend the rest of my life writing about.
Man, that is awesome. You know, Pat, people don't normally hear these stories about a guy, as they say, growing up in Florida, end up playing professional ball. And normally people just hang their hat on that. Now you start writing books. But the thing is, you're not just writing about sports. You're saying it's going to go to that place of being able to write inspirational poems. So as we get ready to wrap this thing up, Pat, what is it? I mean, people talk about God all the time, but what is so special in your life that made you say, no, I'm going somewhere up to this. I'm going to get to this place of sharing inspirational poems that about God and what he's done in your life. What's driving you to do that?
Well, I could just look I'm gonna speak for me. I can look back over my life and know that God has a hand in every move that I've made, and it's just unbelievable.
Wow.
It's really it's mind blowing.
Wow.
If I probably would tell someone this not knowing me, they would probably be like, nah, I don't believe that happened. I don't believe this happened. But it was God.
Whoa,
it was
man.
God.
Wow.
Yes.
That is something.
Yes. He's been amazing.
say he's been amazing. And people don't understand, Pat, that you're still like active in your community. I know we used to talk and you would go and do things as far as packing food to feed the hungry.
Yes.
I think a lot of times people just think once you retire from ball, you sit down and do nothing, but you're active. You believe in being active in your faith and helping others, right?
Oh, yes, you definitely got to help others. Because God, like I said, part of our blessing is to be a blessing.
Yes.
I heard a sermon where it was kind of said, God, we're a conduit. So it's just
God working through us. Yeah.
That's correct.
Man,
and that's kind of how I'm choosing to live my life and go about life.
Man, listen, that is awesome. Listen, if you do not have your copy of American Poet, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you now, go to Amazon right now. Go ahead and order the book, All American Poet by Wendell Pat Carter. Pat, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day, joining me on the Grow Podcast, sharing your story. And listen, every time you put out a book, I need you right back here.
I got you, and I appreciate it. Hey,
yes,
hey, when I'm a bestseller, I'm still going. This going to always be my first stop.
I love it. Listen, brother. Thank you so much. And listen,
thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
To all of my growers, to all my listeners, once again, be sure to get the book. And for the rest of the week, you know what I'm going to tell you what to do, right? Let's go. Let's grow. And as always, let's keep it moving, people. God bless. Have an awesome week. Thank you, Pat. Love you, brother.
All right, brother. Thank you, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.